Today, I'm going to be answering what might be the most common credit card question out there, especially for beginners, which is, when should I pay my credit card bill? By simply paying your credit card bill at the proper time each month, you can actually increase your credit score significantly over the course of a year or two. Two of the biggest factors which go into increasing our credit score while paying our credit bill properly are first the timing of paying it and also keeping our credit utilization as low as we can. I want to first address when we should actually be paying our credit bill, as I think that is more important than the utilization. Once I'm done with that, we'll then dive into how we can focus on our credit utilization to make sure we are getting the most out of our credit score every single month. If you guys are new here, make sure you guys go like and subscribe and check out some of my other content on credit card related topics. To answer the question of when should I pay my credit card bill, the quick answer is before the payment due date, but after the statement close date. Now, I understand that can sound really confusing, so I'm actually gonna walk you through an example of one of my credit card statements and show you some of the key factors and what you should look for to make sure that we're paying off on the proper time. The first point I wanna draw attention to is the opening and closing date of each billing cycle. During the course of each billing cycle, when you make charges with your credit card, they will add up and then you'll have until the next payment due date to pay those charges off. We can see here on my example, these payments that I accrued, which are around $32, built up from the previous payment cycle, but I have until the following month on November 19th to make the payment for what I need to owe. We can see here I have this thing called the new balance. This is the total amount that I spent during that specific billing cycle, which I will have to pay off eventually. Immediately below that is my minimum payment due for that billing cycle. Depending on your credit card issuer and the one that you're using, this number could vary, but for my case, it is actually the exact same as my statement balance. We can also see here that my payment due date is November 19th. If you do have a particular date that you wanted to set up for all your credit cards, you could simply just call your credit card issuer or check on the app or whatever it may be and see if you can get it moved. I like to have mine all on the first, so I'm actually in the process of getting this statement moved up to the first, and then I'll be able to know when all my credit cards are due and make sure that everything's aligned for my own personal safety. These are by far the most important things that you'll find on your statement sheet, so let's break those down a little bit more. When each billing cycle ends, I will have about a month worth of a grace period for me to pay off my credit card statement from that previous month. You can see exactly when this date is that my payments will be due by finding the payment due date on my credit card statement. Once I find this, I can see how much of the payment I owe for each month and how much I will want to pay depending on if I want to pay in full or the minimum payment. I will always recommend paying your credit card statement in full and on time, as I don't want to even touch interest fees as they are very high, and on top of that, it's just safer to practice good financial habits all the time. You understand that everyone finds themselves in a different financial situation, so try and pay as much as that as you can depending on whatever you can afford. If you are not able to pay your credit card statement in full each month, please at least try to pay the minimum payment due, which we saw on our statement sheet. Reason that at least making that minimum payment is very important is because when your statement closes and the payment due date comes up, if you pay what the minimum that you have to pay is, your company will send off to the credit bureau that you have paid what you need to pay and that your credit score will not be lowered. If you pay below that, the credit bureau will see that you have not paid the minimum and will actually negatively affect your credit score, but at least hitting the minimum payment due, you should not negatively affect your credit score. If you do just make the minimum payment month after month, interest fees will continue to build up and you will find yourself in a race. So I do recommend trying to pay as much as that you possibly can each and every month. Interest fees for credit cards are some of the highest out there, with an interest rate around 20 to 25% and sometimes even upwards of 30%. So by making sure that we're making our payments in full, we're avoiding those unnecessary fees. I'll reiterate my point one more time. Please try and make the full payment that you can. If you are unable to make the entire payment for your payment due date in time, at least hit that minimum payment and continually work to pay off your credit cards in full. I hope that this clarifies when exactly you should pay your credit card bill. It should just be before that payment is due. So essentially you'll have a little bit over a month to make that payment in full. But now that we've learned that, I want to talk about credit utilization and why that is so important as well. Credit utilization essentially breaks down to how much of your credit line you have used in each billing cycle. Just to clarify, your credit utilization is essentially how much of your total credit limit you spent each billing cycle. If I spent $5,000 of a $10,000 credit limit, I would have a utilization of 50%. If I spent $1,500 out of $10,000 limit, I would have a utilization of 15%. In my case here for my Chase Freedom Flex, I have a credit limit each billing cycle of $9,900. In this particular billing cycle, I spent $32.79 on my Chase Freedom Flex, giving me a credit utilization of 32.79 over my total allowed $9,900, which is around 0.33%. The reason this is so important is when your credit statement gets sent off to the credit bureaus, they will see how much you have used of your credit limit. This will allow them to see if you're viewed as a risk or as someone that's safe with their credit. Typically, we want to keep our credit utilization as low as possible, below 10%, because if we have utilization of 70, 80%, you might be seen as risky. Though it isn't the biggest factor into your credit score, by having a low credit utilization, we can benefit our score, while if we have a high credit utilization, we might negatively affect it. So the way that we can avoid a high credit utilization is by actually trying to pay off our credit bill before it finally closes. That ties into what we said at the start. If I know that my closing date is going to be on December 1st, then I can say, let me pay off a good chunk of my credit bill before then to avoid a high utilization. For an example, let's say I have a credit line of $10,000 and currently I have used $7,000 in my statement cycle. If my closing date is on December 1st and it's November 28th, then I can say, you know what, let me try and pay off some of that statement before it closes so I can lower my credit utilization below 70%. Maybe I made a big purchase and I want to try and pay it off so my utilization isn't so high. Well, out of that $7,000, I can pay $6,000 of it right now, which will bring my utilization down to 10%, as I will still owe $1,000 when the billing cycle ends. Essentially, I went from having a utilization of 70% down to 10% by paying my bill off properly on time before the statement actually closed. So then when I go to receive my payment and my due date, it will show I owe $1,000 during that grace period for the next month. I understand that this can be a bit confusing. It took me a little bit to understand how this all works, but walking through it and seeing each statement that I had really helped me understand, so I recommend doing that yourselves. Also, feel free to comment any questions and concerns down below and I can help clarify those in the comments. I want to just reinforce one more time how important it is to at least make the minimum payment and try and pay off as much of your statement that you can each and every month. This is just a practice of good financial habits which should hopefully benefit you in the future. If you're interested in what exactly goes into your credit score, as there's so many different factors, be sure to check out that video by me, linked down below and up above. As always, please go comment, like, and subscribe. It goes a long way in helping the channel. See you guys.